Hey everyone, Alex here, and welcome back to Money Talks. We're on episode number 5, and today we're diving into the struggles, successes, and game-changing lessons from entrepreneurs who turned every no into a yes. Tune in to learn how you can do the same. For this deep dive, I'm joined by the incredible Sarah.
Excited to be here, Alex. There's so much we can learn from those who dared to defy the odds.
You got that right. And speaking of defying the odds, today we're taking a deep dive into the world of Howard Schultz, the man behind the global coffee empire, Starbucks. We've got a ton of fascinating articles and research on his journey, and our mission is to uncover the key decisions and values that turned a small Seattle coffee shop into a household name. What really jumps out at you, Sarah, from all this material?
What I find really interesting is that Schultz's story doesn't start with a silver spoon. He grew up in a working-class family in Brooklyn, and those early experiences really shaped his worldview, and ultimately his approach to business.
Yeah, I dug into that a bit. His father was a truck driver who faced some serious hardship after a work-related injury. It makes you wonder how much those childhood experiences can influence someone's drive to create something different.
Absolutely. Schultz has actually talked about how witnessing his father's struggles instilled in him a deep-seated desire to build a company that prioritized employee dignity and opportunity. It wasn't just about profit. It was about creating a better working environment than what his father experienced.
That's powerful stuff. So he's got this drive, this ambition to make a difference.
Yeah.
But how does coffee fit into the picture? Was it always part of the plan?
Not exactly. It seems like a trip to Italy in the early 80s was a pivotal moment for Schultz. He was blown away by the Italian coffeehouse culture. It was about community, the artistry of espresso, and the idea that coffee could be an experience, not just a quick caffeine fix. It wasn't something Americans were really used to at the time.
So he's in Italy, soaking up this vibrant coffee culture, and yeah, the light bulb goes off. He thinks, I need to bring this back to America.
Pretty much. He saw a gap in the market, a chance to create something special. At the time, coffee in the US was mostly seen as a commodity.
Interesting. So we've got Schultz, this ambitious guy with a vision inspired by Italy.
Yeah.
But at this point, Starbucks is just a small chain in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
How does he transform it into this third place he's envisioning?
That's where things take an interesting turn. Schultz didn't actually start Starbucks. He joined the company in 1982, and the original owners weren't sold on his vision of creating an Italian-style coffeehouse experience.
Wow, so he had to convince them to essentially reinvent their own company. That takes some serious guts.
He definitely had to be persistent. He eventually left to start his own coffeehouse, Il Giornale, which focused on espresso drinks and the kind of customer experience he was passionate about. But here's the kicker. Just a few years later, he actually bought Starbucks from the original owners.
Hold on. So he basically went independent, proved his concept, and then came back and took over the whole thing. What a power move.
It definitely shows his determination. And once he was at the helm, he really started building the Starbucks experience we know today. High-quality coffee beans, an inviting atmosphere, and perhaps most importantly, baristas trained to connect with customers on a personal level.
That focus on connection seems like a crucial ingredient here. It's not just grabbing a cup of coffee, it's about the whole experience.
Exactly. It was a completely different approach to coffee culture in America at that time. They weren't just selling a product, they were selling an experience, a feeling of community, and that's what really set them apart.
And this brings us to one of the things that I think our listeners, especially aspiring entrepreneurs, might find most intriguing. How did Schultz take this small chain and transform it into a global powerhouse? What were the key decisions and strategies that fueled this incredible growth?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, and I think a great starting point is to look at how Schultz handled the company during times of crisis, especially when he returned as CEO in 2008 during the financial crisis.
Oh, I remember that period. The economy was in free fall, businesses were struggling. What did Schultz do differently?
He made some bold moves. He decided to close underperforming stores, which sent a message that he was serious about getting back to basics. He also doubled down on employee training, ensuring that the Starbucks experience remained consistent and high quality, even during tough times.
So he basically focused on the core values. That made Starbucks unique in the first place.
Exactly. He recognized that in times of uncertainty, you have to reinforce what makes you stand out. He closed stores to refocus on quality over quantity, and he invested in his employees because he knew they were the face of the brand and the key to delivering the Starbucks experience. It was a risky strategy, but it ultimately paid off.
That's a powerful lesson for any business leader. When the going gets tough, sometimes you need to go back to your roots, to what you truly believe in, to weather the storm.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another defining aspect of Schultz's leadership. His unwavering commitment to his employees. It's not just a feel-good story, it's a core part of his business philosophy.
Right, I've read a lot about how he calls Starbucks employees partners and has always been ahead of the curve in terms of offering benefits, even to part-time workers.
Exactly. Starbucks was one of the first companies to offer things like healthcare benefits and stock options to part-time employees. It was a radical idea at the time, and it really stemmed from his belief that if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers.
And that goes right back to his childhood, doesn't it? He saw firsthand how his father was treated as a worker, and he wanted to create something different, something more equitable and respectful.
You hit the nail on the head. His personal experiences clearly shaped his business ethos. He wanted to build the kind of company he wished his father had the opportunity to work for.
So we've covered his early life, his vision for Starbucks, his bold leadership during tough times, and his employee-centric philosophy. But Schultz didn't stop at coffee, did he? What else did he explore beyond the world of Starbucks?
He's definitely a man of many passions and ambitions. He's written several books, sharing his business insights and reflections on his life journey. He's also been very vocal about social and political issues, even exploring the possibility of a presidential run.
That's right. I remember hearing about his potential presidential aspirations. Didn't he even take some concrete steps toward a campaign?
He did. It was a big deal a few years back. He went as far as hiring political consultants and started to lay the groundwork for a potential run.
Wow, he was serious about it. What happened? Why did he ultimately decide against running?
There were a few factors at play. He faced pushback from some within the Democratic Party, who were concerned that an independent candidacy would split the vote and potentially help re-elect Donald Trump.
That's a valid concern. Running as an independent in a two-party system is a tough road.
It definitely is. And Schultz was also very vocal about his desire to see a more centrist candidate emerge from within the Democratic Party. He seemed to believe that was the most effective path toward achieving his political goals. Ultimately, he chose not to run, but his willingness to even explore a presidential bid speaks volumes about his ambition and his desire to make a difference on a larger scale.
That he does. Speaking of ambition, what about his time owning the Seattle SuperSonics? That chapter in his story didn't exactly end on a high note, did it?
It's definitely a complex and somewhat controversial part of his legacy. He purchased the team in 2001, but ended up selling it to an ownership group. That moved the team to Oklahoma City in 2008. It was a huge blow to Seattle basketball fans.
Yeah, I remember the outrage. A lot of people felt let down by Schultz's handling of the situation.
He faced a lot of criticism, that's for sure. He later admitted that selling the Sonics was one of his biggest regrets, acknowledging that he should have been willing to absorb financial losses to keep the team in Seattle.
It takes a lot of humility to admit a mistake of that magnitude. It shows that even someone as successful as Howard Schultz is still human.
Absolutely. We all make mistakes, even those who seem to have it all figured out. What matters is how we learn from those experiences and try to do better in the future. And of course, amidst all of this, we can't forget his dedication to giving back. He and his wife founded the Schultz Family Foundation, focusing on supporting veterans and helping young people find meaningful employment.
It's inspiring to see how he uses his success to make a positive impact. Okay, so we've touched on a lot of different facets of Howard Schultz's life. His upbringing, his vision for Starbucks, his leadership style, his political aspirations, his missteps, and his philanthropic work. What stands out to you as the most significant takeaways from his story, Sarah? What can our listeners who are on their own entrepreneurial journeys glean from his experience?
That's a great question. I think the most compelling lesson from Schultz's story is the power of vision, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to your values. These are qualities that can be applied to any endeavor, not just business.
Let's break that down a bit. First up, vision. What exactly do you mean by that in the context of Howard Schultz?
Schultz had a very clear idea of what he wanted Starbucks to be, a third place where people could connect and experience coffee in a way that was more than just a quick caffeine fix. He saw the potential for something that didn't exist in the US at the time, and he was determined to make it a reality.
So it's about having that big picture in mind, that North Star that guides your decisions.
Exactly. But it's not enough to just have an idea. You have to truly believe in it and be willing to fight for it, even when others might doubt you. Schultz faced a lot of rejection early on, but he never wavered in his belief that his vision for Starbucks could succeed.
And that brings us to resilience. which seems to be a recurring theme in his story.
You're right. It's a crucial part of his journey. He faced setbacks, made mistakes, and encountered countless obstacles along the way. But he never gave up. He learned from his experiences, adapted to changing circumstances, and found ways to keep moving forward.
So it's about having the grit to keep going, even when things get tough, to not let setbacks define you.
Exactly. Entrepreneurship is rarely a straight path to success. There will be bumps in the road, detours, and unexpected challenges. It's about having the mental toughness to persevere, to learn from your mistakes, and to come back stronger.
And finally, you mentioned an unwavering commitment to your values.
Yeah.
What does that look like in the context of Howard Schultz?
Well, throughout his career, Schultz has been very vocal about his belief in treating employees with respect and dignity. He championed causes he believed in, like supporting veterans and addressing social inequality. And he wasn't afraid to speak out on controversial issues, even when it might have been easier to stay silent.
So it's about knowing what you stand for and having the courage to act on those beliefs, even when it might be unpopular or challenging.
Absolutely. Your values are your compass. They guide your decisions, shape your actions, and ultimately define who you are, both as a person and as a leader.
That's a powerful message. It applies not just to entrepreneurs, but to anyone striving to make a positive impact. But there's one more element to Schultz's story that really stands out to me. His focus on the human element. It's not just about the coffee, the business, or the brand. It's about the people.
You hit on something really important. Schultz has always emphasized the importance of human connection, whether it's between baristas and customers or between the company and its employees. He understands that people are at the heart of any successful business.
And that's a lesson that's so relevant today. In a world increasingly dominated by technology and automation, it's easy to lose sight of the human element. But ultimately, it's the connections we make, the relationships we build, and the impact we have on others that truly matter.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we move forward in this deep dive, I'm curious to explore how Schultz's focus on the human element played out in his leadership style, his business decisions, and ultimately in the success of Starbucks. What do you say, Sarah? Are you ready to dive deeper?
Absolutely. Let's keep exploring. What's fascinating is how that focus on the human element ties directly back to his upbringing.
You mean how his father's experience as a truck driver shaped his views on employee treatment?
Exactly. Schultz saw firsthand the struggles his father faced as a blue-collar worker, and he vowed to create a company where employees felt valued, respected, and empowered.
And that's where his partner's philosophy comes in, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just a catchy term, it reflected a genuine desire to create a different kind of workplace.
Precisely. Schultz understood that if he wanted to build a company that stood for something more than just profit, he needed to treat his employees as stakeholders, not just cogs in a machine.
And that manifested in tangible ways, like offering healthcare benefits and stock options to part-time employees, which was pretty unheard of in the retail industry at the time.
Absolutely. These benefits weren't just about being generous, they were about investing in his employees' well-being and creating a culture of loyalty and shared success. It sent a clear message that Starbucks cared about its employees and that, in turn, fostered a sense of pride and ownership among the staff.
Which ultimately translated into a better customer experience.
Yeah.
Right. Happy employees tend to go the extra mile, and that creates a ripple effect that customers feel.
Exactly. It's a virtuous cycle. When employees feel valued and respected, they're more likely to be engaged, enthusiastic, and committed to delivering exceptional service, and customers pick up on that positive energy. It becomes part of the brand's DNA.
So it's not just about altruism, it's also good business sense. Schultz was ahead of his time in recognizing that investing in your employees is investing in your company's success. But let's be honest, building a global brand like Starbucks wasn't always smooth sailing, was it? There must have been times when those values were tested.
There definitely were. Leading a company through periods of rapid growth, economic downturns, and changing consumer preferences is incredibly challenging. And Schultz faced his share of tough decisions and controversies along the way. Remember his decision to close hundreds of underperforming stores in 2008? That was a bold move that sent shockwaves through the company.
It must have been a difficult decision, but it also demonstrated his commitment to quality and his willingness to make tough choices for the long-term health of the brand. It would have been easy to prioritize short-term profits and keep those struggling stores open, but Schultz took a more strategic long-term approach.
And that's a key takeaway here. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that ultimately lead to the greatest success. It's about having the courage to stay true to your vision and to make the tough calls even when they're unpopular.
That reminds me of his decision to step down as CEO in 2000, only to return in 2008 during the financial crisis. It takes a certain kind of leader to walk away from the top spot and then come back to steer the ship through turbulent waters.
It speaks volumes about his dedication to the company and his belief in its mission. He wasn't afraid to step aside when he felt it was necessary, but was also willing to step back in when the company needed his leadership the most.
It shows a deep sense of responsibility, not just to the company's bottom line, but to its employees and its customers.
And to its values. He recognized that Starbucks was more than just a coffee company. It was a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of connection and community, and he felt a responsibility to protect that legacy.
And speaking of legacy, what about his decision to step down as CEO again in 2016? Was he finally ready to retire, or did he have other aspirations in mind?
Well, he didn't exactly retire. He transitioned to the role of executive chairman, focusing more on the company's global strategy and social impact initiatives, but there were certainly whispers about potential political ambitions.
Right, the presidential buzz. It was all over the news for a while. What do you think drew him to politics? Was it a genuine desire to serve, or was it something else?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think it speaks to his ambition and his belief that he could make a difference on a larger scale. He'd already achieved incredible success in the business world, and perhaps he felt that he could apply those same skills and principles to public service.
It's interesting to think about what might have been had he actually decided to run. Do you think he had a realistic chance of winning?
It's always difficult to predict the outcome of an election, especially one as complex and unpredictable as a U.S. presidential race. But it's clear that he was a polarizing figure, and his independent candidacy would face significant challenges.
Especially in such a politically divided climate. It's tough for any third-party candidate to gain traction, let alone win.
And he faced a lot of criticism, both from Democrats who feared he would split the vote and from those who questioned his motives and political experience.
So it's a mixed bag. On the one hand, it's admirable that he was willing to step outside of his comfort zone and consider running for office. But on the other hand, you have to wonder if it was a realistic pursuit or more of a vanity project.
Perhaps a bit of both. But regardless of his motivations, it highlights an important point. Schultz wasn't afraid to take risks, to challenge the status quo, and to pursue his ambitions even in uncharted territory.
And that's a valuable lesson for anyone, whether you're an entrepreneur, an artist, or simply someone with a dream. It's okay to be ambitious, to reach for the stars, and to believe that you can make a difference. Even if you don't always succeed, the act of pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone is incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. It's about embracing challenges, learning from setbacks, and never losing sight of your vision.
And that brings us to another interesting chapter in Schultz's story, his ownership of the Seattle SuperSonics.
Ah, yes, the Sonics. A bittersweet tale of passion, ambition, and ultimately disappointment.
It's a reminder that even the most successful entrepreneurs make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes have far-reaching consequences.
Exactly. Schultz clearly had a deep love for basketball and a desire to bring a championship to Seattle. But his tenure as owner was marked by controversy, financial struggles, and ultimately the team's relocation to Oklahoma City.
It was a devastating loss for Seattle basketball fans, and Schultz faced a lot of criticism for his role in the team's departure.
He made some missteps along the way, particularly in his handling of negotiations for a new arena. He pushed for public funding, which proved to be unpopular, and he alienated some key players and fans with his management style.
It's a cautionary tale about the importance of listening to your stakeholders, building consensus, and being willing to compromise.
And it's a reminder that even with the best of intentions, things can go wrong. Sometimes circumstances beyond your control can derail your plans, and you have to make tough decisions that may not please everyone.
But what's important is to own up to your mistakes, to learn from them, and to try to make amends. And to Schultz's credit, he did express regret for his handling of the Sonic situation and acknowledge the pain it caused Seattle basketball fans.
It takes a certain level of humility to admit when you've messed up, especially when you're someone who's achieved as much as Howard Schultz. It shows that he's not above admitting his faults and learning from his experiences.
And it's a valuable lesson for all of us. Nobody's perfect and we all make mistakes. What matters is how we handle those mistakes and what we learn from them.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging our shortcomings, taking responsibility for our actions, and using those experiences to grow and become better versions of ourselves.
So as we reflect on this multifaceted journey, what do you think are the most enduring lessons we can take away from Howard Schultz's story, Sarah? What can our listeners who may be navigating their own paths to success learn from his triumphs and his missteps?
Well, I think there's several key takeaways. First, the power of vision is undeniable. Schultz had a clear idea of what he wanted to create with Starbucks, and he never lost sight of that goal, even when faced with challenges and setbacks.
It's about having that North Star, that guiding principle that keeps you motivated and focused.
Exactly. And it's also about the importance of resilience. Schultz faced countless obstacles along the way, but he never gave up. He learned from his mistakes, adapted to changing circumstances, and kept pushing forward.
It's about having the grit and determination to persevere, even when the going gets tough.
And of course, we can't forget the importance of values. Schultz's commitment to treating his employees with respect and dignity was a core part of his business philosophy, and it played a significant role in Starbucks' success.
It's about building a company that stands for something more than just profit. A company that reflects your values and makes a positive impact on the world.
And finally, I think Schultz's story highlights the importance of human connection. He understood that people are at the heart of any successful business, and he built a company that fostered community connection and a sense of belonging.
It's a reminder that in a world increasingly dominated by technology and automation, the human element is more important than ever. It's about building relationships, creating a positive work environment, and treating people with respect and dignity.
And those are values that transcend any particular industry or profession. They're values that we can all strive to embody in our own lives and careers.
Couldn't agree more. And I think that's what makes Howard Schultz's story so compelling. It's a story of ambition, resilience, and a deep commitment to making a difference. But it's also a story of mistakes, controversies, and lessons learned along the way.
It's a reminder that even the most successful people are human, and they're not immune to setbacks and failures. What matters is how we learn from those experiences and use them to grow and become better versions of ourselves.
And that's something we can all relate to, regardless of our background or aspirations. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you, dear listener, to reflect on what resonates with you most from Howard Schultz's journey.
Think about the lessons he learned, the challenges he overcame, and the values he championed, and consider how you can apply those insights to your own life, your own career, and your own pursuit of success.
Because ultimately, Howard Schultz's story is a testament to the power of human ingenuity, resilience, and the enduring belief that we can create positive change in the world. And that's what's so inspiring about his story. It's not just about building a billion-dollar business, it's about the impact you have along the way.
Exactly. It's about using your success, your platform, your resources to create positive change, whether it's in your company, your community, or the world at large.
You know, it's funny, we've talked a lot about Schultz's big, bold moves, but I think there's a really important lesson here for anyone out there who's just starting out, who maybe feels intimidated by the sheer scale of what he achieved with Starbucks.
What do you mean?
Well, I think it's easy to look at someone like Schultz and think, wow, he's exceptional, I could never do that. But the reality is he started small, just like everyone else. He had an idea, a passion, and a willingness to hustle. He faced rejection, setbacks, and doubts along the way, but he kept going.
That's such a crucial point. Success doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey, a process of trial and error, of learning and adapting. Schultz didn't have all the answers when he started out. He made mistakes, learned from them, and kept iterating.
And I think that's incredibly encouraging. For aspiring entrepreneurs, you don't have to have it all figured out from day one. You don't need a perfect business plan or $1 million in funding.
Yeah.
What you need is that spark, that drive, that unwavering belief in your idea.
And the courage to take action, to put yourself out there, to face those inevitable rejections and setbacks, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow, that's how you ultimately succeed.
So to all our listeners out there who are dreaming big, who are working tirelessly to build something meaningful, remember Howard Schultz's story. Remember that it all started with an idea, a passion, and a willingness to persevere.
Don't let fear hold you back. Embrace the challenges, the setbacks, the learning process, because that's where the real growth happens.
And you never know, maybe someday we'll be doing a deep dive on your incredible entrepreneurial journey.
That would be amazing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the life and legacy of Howard Schultz, I want to leave you with one final thought. What is that one core value that you're absolutely unwilling to compromise on, no matter what challenges you face in your own entrepreneurial journey?
That's a great question for everyone to ponder. What's your non-negotiable, Alex?
For me, it's authenticity, staying true to myself, my vision, and my values, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular. That's what matters most.
I love that. It's about leading with integrity and purpose.
Exactly. And if you're curious to learn more about Howard Schultz's journey in his own words, I highly recommend checking out his books. They're full of insights, anecdotes, and lessons learned from a lifetime of building one of the most iconic brands in the world.
Great suggestion. They offer a fascinating glimpse into his mindset and his approach to leadership.
Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of Howard Schultz. A huge thank you to you, Sarah, for sharing your incredible insights and expertise.
It's always a pleasure, Alex.
And to you, our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and inspiration from Howard Schultz's remarkable story. Until next time, keep those entrepreneurial spirits burning bright.
Cheers to that.